We are live. We're live. Um. So I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until people start talking. Oh. Do you know those videos of Trisha Paytas on like the Ethan Klein podcast thing? And it'll literally just be like super cuts of when she's just like, no.
I haven't seen it. Oh wait, I can join the live. Let's see. On my phone.
Yeah, do that. Get the numbers up.
If I can find the perfect angle.
What's up, Remy? Jesus, that's crazy.
Wait, let's do a.
I think that you're breaking the matrix too much. What's up, Zucchini Records? What is up, Remy?
What's up, Zucchini? Am I breaking everything?
Yeah, I think you're destroying the matrix. Anyway, yeah, Remy was first. Remy's back. Remy's first. Remy, what are you doing today? Thanks, I just made the cute graphic.
Isn't it a cute graphic? That's so cute. I feel like I should back up. My head looks so big compared to yours.
You can if you want. Well, now my head looks big.
This looks good.
I think so.
I'll just lean back.
What's up, Twitch streamer?
Just trying to chill. We'll just hang out and chill with Chase and I. And we'll be talking about music and listening to music, and we're good. Wait 1 sec. Let me see if... Oh, I can get Chase full screen.
Yeah, do that.
You're full screen now.
Oh my goodness.
That's epic.
I can see it.
Yo, what's up, Shoutsy?
Business mode.
We want business mode?
But I want to see you too, Harrison.
Yeah, no, we're good. Okay, so we'll do this.
Business mode.
Appreciate it. We're not getting Chase business mode not once in the whole live. He's not in charge here. And so to begin, I am going to play Chase's most recent song that he just dropped called I Can't Stop Loving You. And we're going to say bye to Chase for a second while we're playing the song, and then we'll be back. So let's all listen to I Can't Stop Loving You by Chase Ceglie. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
can't do it alone. No, 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 I won't do it. Oh, I travel long way through this lonely place, 'cause I don't wanna do it alone. I can't do it alone. Well, maybe I'll just be here alone. I'll get used to alone. I hate being alone when all I wanna do is with you.
Big shout out to Chase Ceglie. We're getting Chase Ceglie back in here. Chase is back. Good song, bro.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
So
You were there, bro.
thank you, Mind of Scob, for the subscription. Appreciate you.
Mind of Scob.
Mind of Scob. Remy loves it. Shotzi said good shit. And where I want to begin is sort of asking about the process of like where you're coming from right now in general, because to my knowledge at least, like there's not a specific album on the way. It's more just creating.
Yeah, I'm right now I'm just focused on trying to write the best songs that I humanly can, like from a kind of from like a conventional standpoint, and looking at it very traditionally, and then seeing how honest I can get with producing it and kind of like making it as raw as I can. Like, I think in the past I've been focused on like whenever I get into album mode, I'm like that's my entire life, that consumes me. And so it's interesting to like not be in album mode, but still kind of just like the seed collecting process, where I'm not thinking about it on like a macro sense, but I'm just thinking, hey, let's just put out as many songs as I can.
So generally it's more just about a part of like your routine is like making a song instead of making a song with the idea that it's going to be on an album.
Yeah, and I think that's like the healthiest way for me to think about it, because if I think about it in like a grander scheme, then I stop like being right now with it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And is that based on like a perfectionist thing, do you think?
Definitely. But I definitely I think you can tell in my music that like perfectionism in the sound of things isn't my main thing. It's more in the conceptual, I guess.
Yeah.
Where I'm very happy to like leave mistakes in a record. I love that. I really do.
Because I feel like just talking to you and knowing you generally, that you're more focused on like, and what you're proud of most of all is being a songwriter and like a melody maker, as opposed to like a Steely Dan, like everything's perfect technically.
Yeah.
Like you're much more about the feeling and sort of like making all these different little bops instead of trying to like hone the most perfect record in the world.
Yeah, I have no interest in doing that, at least right now in my life. But I also, I think of music in a very theatrical sense, like in a very, like, especially in an album, I want to give an experience more than anything. And usually that has to do with like a musical idea more than like a just perfect production. I call that LA music, that like,
Yeah.
it's everything's perfect. And it's like, I don't know, might as well make a robot.
Yeah.
Make it.
I feel like that sort of goes along with, recently I've been thinking about the sort of like idea of like genre bending, and you're the perfect example of somebody that like goes against that, where within music over the last maybe 10 years or so, and a lot of the stuff that like made me want to start making videos in the first place was like teenagers or like people in their early 20s that had all these different passions and interests and wanted to combine them. And it was like an exciting thing, but now it's almost gotten to a point where it's played out, and genre bending almost seems like it's its own genre now, where all the things that are like trending on Spotify and whatnot are a little pop, a little R&B, a little hip hop, a little something. And it's like, that was interesting maybe 5-10 years ago when it like felt fresh, but now I feel like people are just doing it because that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I think is so refreshing about the stuff that you come out with is that it's really specific, like where it's coming from. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Well, you know, I consider myself a musical tourist. And what I do is I hone in on like a specific time period or a sound. I think I've even done it with you maybe, where it's like, if you play a record, I'm pretty good at knowing the exact year that it was made. And so I have like an encyclopedic knowledge of how things work. So I just go through different phases in my life where like I'm really like with Chaseland, I was so obsessed with like whatever was happening in 1971 through 1973. And that was kind of what came out of it. No, like I think that the genre, well, to go even further, like Onion was very like 80s. Like I was really obsessed with 80s and like drum machines. But genre bending is really important nowadays. And I think in my future music, it's going to do it a lot more. Because, man, if I can get like kind of, I don't know, pretentious about it, I don't know, like, you know, I've been thinking about what it is to live in like this time period that we're in, where like, again, I don't want to paint in broad strokes, but to me, whenever I see something that was made in the 20th century that is so wild, it makes me think so much has already been done before. I mean, and maybe that's like maybe that's what postmodern is. I don't know. Like where you're acknowledging the fact that most things have probably been done before, and now it's our job as artists to combine these things. And so in the 21st century, I think it's just finding different combinations of things that we all know and we can all like recognize. And I think that's so fun for me is just finding different combinations of things.
It's fun. And one sec, I just want to go to the chat really quick. Cycling back, Remy, yes, Chase did write the song and did everything behind it, right?
I did all the instruments.
Yeah, everything behind it. And then Mind of Scob said, awesome track, Chase. Onion has so many amazing tracks. I had no idea there was so much new content you had out. And nice stuff to me, so thank you, Scob. And one thing that I think is interesting about sort of like taste getting into what you make is how sort of synonymous that can be, where there's a great example of maybe a year or two ago when I was doing a fan showcase thing, and I hit up some of like my favorite musicians that I'm close with, and it was like you, Ravi, the guys from Sleepwell, etc. And it was so funny that like I asked all of you to pick what your best song was out of the list of all these different fan showcase things were.
And you could predict it.
Everybody just picked the stuff that like they sound like or are sort of close to or they enjoy themselves. And it was funny being like, not that I expected that to happen, but it just made so much sense that when I got all these different songs sent to me, probably 150 different songs, and going through each and every one, there are some that sound really good, but like the idea isn't too interesting, or there's crazy specific genre stuff on this, or somebody's doing a really cool songwriting aspect on this. It was like, of course, the very sort of specific retro, intimate club style
Yeah,
one was the one that you picked.
of course.
And it was just funny thinking about like how you and that person both creating, like, what excites you. So that would be a good question for right now. So like, what sort of excites you right now that other people are doing, whether it's modern stuff or not, being that you're a tourist?
It's funny, like that is a fun question because I think if you had given me that prompt of that list of songwriters while I was making Onion, I would not have picked that retro kind of song because at that moment I was just not in that lane mentally. And like I was very into like 80s music. Even like when I was doing Fear and Love, it was like I was so invested in whatever's happening in like the 60s and like crazy synthesized music. So like what interests me now is, that's so tough. I can like look at my Spotify listening. Let's see. I mean, always there's very specific people that I love all the time. So it's like Stephen Sondheim, Paul McCartney. I watched Beau is Afraid last night.
Oh yeah, talk about that without like spoilers or anything. What excites you about like that aspect of like, even if we're going into film instead of music, it's all sort of creative juices flowing.
I think that the it's not one style. It was a 3-hour long movie, and it's like kind of, it's broken. I don't want to give too much away, but there's like different, there's checkpoints that you hit in the movie where it becomes a totally different style. And I think that reflects like what that genre bending thing that we are living in now, because I think it's necessary. Like I think, Martin Scorsese's done those movies, and Sofia Coppola has done those movies, and so now it's time for Ari Aster to like combine them all together. Is it horror? Is it comedy? Is it that's to me is what's so exciting. But I also, what's exciting is when there's nuance to it. Like it's not obvious. And I think that there's great and bad music in every time period. And I think what makes it bad is when it's too on the nose, or it's too like, it doesn't do it in like an aware sense. Maybe the last song that I did was too on the nose, or maybe it's I don't know, like you understand my references. I don't know.
Yeah. And so that's an interesting thing, thinking about like how you said 21st century is like postmodern compared to everything that came out in the 1900s or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that's what we're basing what we're doing now on, like looking at what was before.
Yeah.
And it's funny trying to just create something new that can feel exciting. And so with your example of Beau is Afraid, it's like, how can we, after 100 years of movies, keep creating something new? And so in this sense, it just seems like structure, even of like structure multiplied by genre, multiplied by self-awareness and whatnot. And it's really captivating to sort of try and be interesting or be different in some way than what was before. Remy wants to know, what is your favorite process of composing music?
When it feels good. I hate when it feels bad. Like when I like when I can be in the moment, but I can like overanalyze a lot. I think everyone can. I think you overthink things and you get in your own way. But for me, the favorite part of composing definitely is, finishing a song is really nice.
Do you say when you finish a song, is it ever check as soon as you hit the last whatever you know you're done? Or is it always some sort of like vague process of like, I think I'm done, but I might not be?
Depends on the song. I would say there are some songs that like you come to a point where you're like, all right, I just need to get it over with, and like it's my decision when it's done, and like, okay, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I'm done working on the song, and maybe there's another really, I think to answer that question about favorite process, I really do think it's putting an album together.
Hmm.
I think that might be when you can fully realize how all of these songs and ideas can come together in like the certain order. And to your question about when is a song done, I don't know, because a lot of the time the next song informs the last song that I just made.
Mm.
And so when you create a body of work, you give it a certain amount of time and you just make, and you think a song is done, and then you make something totally new, and you're like, oh, wait, that helps what I just did last week.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that might be the most fun process. I mean, it's like the agony and the ecstasy of making things, but it's fun.
Is like track listing something that stays consistent, say album from album and whatnot? Are you making songs and then trying to see where they fit, or are you making songs knowing you're trying to hit these certain beats, track 1, track 2, track 3, etc.?
I think I'm making a lot of things, and at one point I realized I think I have an album here, and then it's a matter of filling in all the gaps that come with that. And a lot of maybe the little gaps can get informed by what needs to be filled to fill 35 minutes of music for an album. Yeah, everything informs everything else, and even my last albums inform the new albums. I always like hold them up to each other and be like, well, this one did this and it was successful to me, so how can I recreate something like that?
Right now, Shotzi and Remy are in the chat talking about sort of the importance of focusing on more specific things and then time with inspiration and breaks and whatnot.
Yeah.
Can you talk through like your writer's block moments? How does that work for you?
I don't really believe in writer's block right now. I think I used to, but I think for me, I'm realizing that the most important thing that you can do is just show up every day.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters is the work, and that means it doesn't. That means that I think Rick Rubin said this, which is really nice. As an artist, sometimes you have to accept the fact that the thing you work on for 5 minutes could be better than the thing you work on for 5 weeks. You just have to accept that. And so part of the process for me is just showing up. That's it. Just like it could be 20 minutes a day. Like I did the thing, and then I have like a catalog of what I make, and then I move on. And then in 6 months, I can look back and I can see, oh, hey, you know what? I really didn't like that thing when I made it, but 6 months later, I love it.
Yeah.
And I also, to that point of like taking breaks, I believe that stepping away from something can be equal, if not more important than making something, than the process of doing it, because your subconscious is working on it. It's like, it's doing the thing. It's like, it's building the lily pads that you can hop along the pond with.
And when it comes to sort of experimenting while you're just throwing stuff at the wall, how often would you say that you just sort of go balls to the wall? You're just like, does it ever get sort of crazy? How often are you doing things that might not even have any chance of like helping you later on or like being finished?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like I think last week I was just working on like techno music just to do it, just to be like, okay, here's a beat, boom, 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 boom. and like I don't know what's gonna happen, but it could inform something really great. So yeah, like experimenting. It's funny. Like I did you listen to any of the Mac DeMarco stuff that was
All the
released?
instrumentals,
Yeah,
not many of them, but I mean, like, I mean, in comparison to everything else.
yeah. Like there, I related to all of that so much because it just had a date, and that was it. And every now and then, like it's like classic Mac DeMarco vibe, classic. And then there's just one song that's like, it sounds like core, like niche core
Yeah.
music, or like the Aphex Twin, where it's like, where did this come from? I totally related to that. Yeah, you make some crazy stuff, and I think like during Fear and Love Together, it was like I had enough songs so that I had where I was at that point. I was happy to be like, let's make some noise now.
Yeah.
And I'm always inspired by that, like noise music, like ambient music. I like that's my stuff.
I think that that's a great point to go on next is within the reviewing Twitch songs video that we just put out, the song that was my favorite by far was by an artist named Alex Bannon. It was a song called Doc Weiler, and it was like it felt like a perfect combination of the two, where it was like it had elements of like being a demo or like a voice memo to it, but then it also felt perfect the way it was too. And I think that that's sort of a new frontier in itself, is seeing behind the scenes and like looking backstage at like what an artist is doing. I think that more people should do that as opposed to like only putting out the very perfect thing.
I totally agree. I've always been really fascinated in the process of making music. And like that's also what live music is. Like, and I as a jazz musician too, like that's you play jazz music live. And I think that if you subscribe to my Patreon, you can see all of my demos, which is like I'm getting out all of the ideas, and it explains the process a little bit. And for me, it's exciting because I don't know what's going to happen with songs. We'll see. And and I think maybe that's the beauty of social media, is that you can use it to display your process a little bit. And see, sometimes I question my own sanity sometimes when I make music, because I think I know what a song sounds like when it's in the process. And so if I send it to people, like sometimes I send you songs that are like totally unfinished, and in my head I have this image of what it will sound like, but what I've done in the work doesn't accomplish that for the listener. And so I always get like feedback is always so weird for me, because it's like, well, can you see where I'm going? I will get there. I can do that. Like I'm planning on doing it, but like, most of the time I just stop doing that. And I think maybe that is a little healthy. You can't send everything when it's in the process.
Sure. One thing that I've been repeating like nonstop to myself, and like in my videos or when I'm writing scripts or on stream, is like how contextual everything is all the time forever.
Yeah.
And like knowing where somebody's coming from. And so like that's a perfect place to go with like you and your demos, of you sending them and where you're going and how you feel about it, but then anybody seeing it can interpret it whatever way they want. Somebody could listen to it and be like, oh, this isn't a highly produced, perfect, finished song. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to sort of take that into account and not even say that that person's wrong, but just to like see how everything can be interpreted because of how specific everything is.
Yeah.
Picklosaurus Rex wants to know, what about 1971 to 73 was interesting to you? The analog saturation, the tactile tape sound, the musical moment genres?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also think like on a visual level, well, there's a lot. I can have like long answer to this, I guess. I live in Rhode Island, and it's very green around here. And the house that I live in was built in 1969, and there's something about what I've been kind of like uh, surrounded by that felt very like woody, earthy, green. And if I like combine the senses, that's kind of what it sounds like to me. Like this is like so specific, but it's the sound of like an acoustic guitar with a Fender Rhodes, electric piano, or like a Wurlitzer. I don't know why. That's just like what I was. That's what I'm surrounded by, and so that was really exciting. But yeah, earth tones, literally, yes. And I think something about like the post '60s, like especially this like the stuff that like Paul McCartney was doing, was really, really, really inspiring because he did all of it by himself, and like I'm into that. Um, Also, I feel like the 2010s can be equated to like a similar kind of thing that was happening, and there was a revolution, especially with like the internet, I think. And maybe like for me, when 2020 hit, it kind of felt like 1970 a little bit, or it was like this post decade kind of like after the dust settles, it's like what's happening. And I think I actually think that 70s music is really big right now. I think that for me at least on my TikTok feed, maybe because it's curated to my taste,
Sure.
but like it's like there's a lot of 70s music that's out. The dry drums, like the Fleetwood Mac,
Yeah.
Resurgence, like all that stuff.
Well, it's interesting too because I know that when you were making Chaseland, you would name 70s artists, or you would be like, oh yeah, like Paul McCartney, Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, whatever. But
Yeah.
then it would be like Clairo is in there too,
Yeah,
because of how 70s the new Clairo album felt.
exactly.
And it's funny to sort of seamlessly blend her into that mix because it's like, yeah, why not have it be the same thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the time doesn't matter, what it sounds like is what matters.
No, and I think like it's the instrumentation and it's the songwriting plus like the 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 colors that you see when you hear it, like that type of production. Like I it's a very visual thing for me. It's the colors that the Claro album sounds like it has the same colors as like early 70s music.
And you go on a lot of walks. And
Pretty much every day, hopefully every day.
I feel like in a way 70s music generally and the stuff that you were making for Chaseland is almost good walk music.
I agree. And I have a walk I go to this coffee shop pretty like hopefully every day if I can, and it's about a 25-30 minute walk, and it was active in my head where I was like I need to make my next album like perfect for this little walk that I do. And you're right, I do take a lot of walks. Nature was a huge thing in the well, it always is. I don't know. But it was really big in the 70s. I don't know.
To your point too, I think there's something there about like sort of 60s 70s hippie nature, but then post lockdown, like we were stuck inside, now we want to go outside again.
Look at that. There we go. I completely agree. Yes. And I think that even goes back to like the ones I wasn't alive during the Vietnam War, but like I think everyone was a little pissed off and confused, and I think like during COVID too, it was like, what's happening here? Like, I don't know. There's some relation to it in my head that I could be totally off base with, but it felt right to me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like really interested in like, okay, I did 1973. What's 1978 through 1981 like? And I'm like, and for me, that color is indigo. I don't know why. There's a darker shade of like purple and blue to that time period. And so the music, I'm just consuming music that is from that time period, and the music to me that I'm making right now is headed in that direction.
Does history matter at all? Are you like a history junkie at all?
Music history, but for the most part, I'm pretty oblivious to like political history and wars, but definitely musical history. Oh, I'm like Yeah, definitely.
I just thought that was an interesting thing of going off of like the Vietnam War to COVID parallel of like,
Yeah.
if when you're going on specific years, if you're like, I need to know how a human being felt, so you're like
Yeah.
Googling or watching documentaries of like what was 1979 like.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch one Vietnam documentary
Yeah.
at all. But I definitely, I don't know, it's just, yeah, I don't know.
Do you have anything to say about My Love by Wings?
Such a good song. Red Rose Speedway.
Mm.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs. I love Paul because of his melodies. I mean, it's like, that's my stuff.
Remy had a question about sort of the inspiration of creating music.
Yeah.
And I think, at least from my parallel, because I'm someone that is really interested in music and loves it, but I virtually have no interest in making music whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so what's the difference with you, do you think? Or just musicians in general? Or like what made you want to make songs?
Well, I grew up playing saxophone, and that was like kind of my life. That was like what I was known for. I went to school for it, blah, blah, blah. And I just saw a wall with that, like in terms of like audience perception of it and what I personally liked. I think that a really good test for music is, and this is my dad talking, where you see someone play, you see someone do something, you see, this is for any creative thing. You have two options where you go, I could do that. And the other one is, wow.
Yeah.
I want to do that, you know, or like, I can't do that right now. I want to be able to do that. And I think for me, I'm always like doing those two things where I'm like, I could do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I don't feel like doing that, but I can do that, that kind of thing. And I'm always looking at things where it's like, whoa, how did they do that? And that's the creative process for me, is like, what's going on here?
There's like a bravery and like courageousness to that in general, though, I would say, with like sort of how your personality works. I think is that like I've been playing soccer my whole life and you have not. But then when I was just talking about indoor soccer one day, you were just like, yeah, I would. And I'm like, in like a fast paced environment where like people might be sort of yelling at each other, you might get really embarrassed because you're doing the thing wrong next to people that like played in college, as opposed to you being a saxophone player in college. Somebody worked their whole life so they could play soccer in college, and you're right next to them. And it's like, but you don't care about failing? Do you think that is an aspect to it?
Well, you know, Harrison, I can actually say the same thing about you. Like, I think I even brought it up. Like, you sang at the jam session.
Yeah.
You just sang a song, and like that takes so much bravery to just like remove the lens of any sort of judgment.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I think that there's a difference between us there, though, is that, at least from my perspective, there was a whole lot of buildup of, ooh, it would be fun to sing at the jam session, but I'm a little nervous boy, and that would be scary to go on stage, and all these people are so good, and I don't know what people are going to think, and what if I mess up and stuff. Yeah. But then, I don't know, eventually going so many times or feeling comfortable that specific night or something, I was still nervous singing.
Couldn't tell at all.
I don't sing. But it's like, I think that my question is do you feel a lot of anxiety when performing or when trying something new, or is it more of an adventure?
I think that I feel little to no anxiety if I'm trying something out, if I'm experimenting with something. I've never really had a problem with like, I've never done this before. I have the right to fail.
Yeah.
You know, it's allowed to not do well in this. Now, the other thing is like my biggest insecurity is my voice. So like every day I have some sort of like complex that I'm like, it's like my dragon that I need to slay.
Yeah.
And that's because I there's pressure on that. I love writing songs. Who the hell's going to sing them? I guess I'm gonna sing them. And so yeah, I definitely do feel anxiety, but I do the work to lean into it and not, I tell myself something where it's like, sometimes if the fear does not subside, you have to do it afraid.
Mm. That's
And
nice. Did you make that?
I don't know where I got it. I think I
Okay.
might have gotten it from. I think I might have like combined two phrases, but
Sure.
just like sometimes you got to do it afraid.
I think that's a good explanation of what happened with me in trying to sing at the jam session.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like I kept being nervous every time, but I wanted to sing every time.
yeah,
But I just had to do it in order to do it.
yeah, yeah,
Because otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
yeah. It's fun. It's memorable. You remember the times when you were terrified of something. Like you remember those things.
Being that saxophone is sort of something that you can always go back to because of how many hours you put into it,
Mhm.
and at like the high level that you've played saxophone at, versus you being insecure about your voice. Is saxophone easy to you? Is that just nothing? It's butter?
No,
Mm.
not at all. I mean, it depends on the style. Yes, I have a very easy time, and I'm very confident in my ability to interpret a song on saxophone and to play it as if I'm singing it.
Mm.
Now, the moment you hit 220 beats per minute, which is very fast,
Yeah.
I stop. I get in my head, or I lose interest, or I don't know. I'm not. I don't feel confident in my ability to go fast. I'm a slow kind of guy. So yeah, I feel good about my like ways of that I can bring the soul out of a song. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a difference between sort of your own insecurity about your voice versus what you would say enjoy hearing in somebody else? If somebody else failed with their voice, Picklesaurus Rex in the chat just said something about the
Thank
voice.
you, Picklesaurus Rex.
Yeah,
Very-
the voice being an imperfect instrument and giving it character. I have a feeling
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you would appreciate that in somebody else, but you might be embarrassed of it yourself.
Completely. And I've talked about this a lot in interviews. Like, one thing that's part of my practice is
Hi, Scary King.
Hi, Scary King. One thing that is 100% ingrained in my practice of making music is I take the song with my voice on it and I change the speed of it. And
Yeah.
I make it faster, so it's like a chipmunk version, or I slow it down, so it's like. And that, to me, gets rid of my bias of my own voice, where I can hear it and I can go, well, if this, it doesn't sound like me, and I can judge it as if it's not me. And then that usually tells me, okay, I should fix that. I can tell there's objectively something I don't like about that part of the performance, versus like that. This was all in my head. I sound fine. I sound totally fine.
Would you have somebody sing your songs for you if that was an option?
Well, I see myself like in my 30s writing musicals. So like, yeah, definitely. I like writing for characters, writing for other people. Definitely. Yes, definitely. But right now it's like a means to an end. Like I feel like I have to figure out how to sing because maybe now I could pitch my songs to other people. I'm at that point, but like, I think there was a beginning phase of my music making where it's like, I got to sing my own songs.
Yeah.
It's out of necessity. I think a lot of what I do is out of necessity.
Do you think that if somebody, hi, Corn Guy, I believe that's how it's
Con R guy.
Connor Guy? I was thinking it was like corn. Oh, yeah, it's Connor Guy. Do you think that if somebody was in your position and they felt like they had songs that were good, but had a horrible voice that is just terrible? Connor, okay.
Connor. Hey, Connor guy.
What do you think that person should do if they aren't in the position to say hire somebody or something? Is toying with your own songs with your bad voice better than nothing?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really, really good question. And I do not have a concrete answer to it. I can give some like examples, I guess. Like, there's the writer, yeah, yeah, Melodyne
Yeah.
and Autotune. Those are the two options. I think, I mean, seriously, you can not fool. You can convince a lot of people that you're a good singer with the technology that we have nowadays. Specifically, Melodyne. Autotune is like a totally different thing, but Melodyne is the software that was invented in like 2000, where you sing a thing and you can change the pitch. Like you can go in and just like perfectly do the pitch. That's one option. The other thing is maybe like learning an instrument and making an instrumental version so that you make instrumental music. The other thing is if you can't pay someone, just make a friend with a voice you like,
Yeah.
you know? And you're right. It won't fix your intonation. It won't. It won't fix. It will fix your intonation, the pitch. It just won't. The only thing that it won't fix is your interpretation of the song.
Yeah.
And that's another point is that if you can have so much skill at one thing, and for the most part, you don't need any of it if you can feel the song.
And
If you can, and also the other thing too is write to your voice. If you don't think that you have a nice voice, or maybe you write songs that are more in the style of like late Leonard Cohen, who talks his music. I think that or get really invested in lyric writing. Be a storyteller. Like finding the style that works for your voice will probably have the best outcome.
I completely agree that no matter what, there's an option. Whether it's talking, whether it's Shotzi said like Vocaloid, whether it's just having a weird voice.
Yeah.
I think that if your stuff is good and interesting, it won't really matter at the end of the day. Because
the feeling is the most important part.
Yeah, if you have like a rapper like Danny Brown, or there's a singer, this is an oddly specific reference, but there's a singer named Asaf Avidan that has this like really high pitched sort of like screechy voice, and it like hits me in a great way. I don't imagine that everybody would like it, but I like it. And then you can do the whole Bob Dylan conversation of people saying, oh, this is the worst thing in the world, or the voice doesn't even matter really whatsoever because they like the words so much.
I agree with that. I also set kind of like a principle for myself a few years ago, which is that I cannot, it would be unfair and it would be wrong of me to judge the quality of music in a negative way if I don't like their voice. And that's like that's hard to do, but to discriminate on music based on just the voice alone is such a slippery slope, and it is kind of unfair because everyone's born with like whatever voice they have, and so they got to make it work. And so I just kind of like I set that really. I don't always stick to it, but I always have to remind myself like, okay, if it's the voice that's the issue for me, get over it.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting thing of like seeing people live. Say if we're at a festival and you're seeing a bunch of bands, or you're seeing people that you like haven't, like a band or a singer that you're not familiar with, and sometimes especially with like folky stuff, you can be like, in the same way that you said it, like I could do that.
Yeah,
like I could be singing the way that guy is.
Right.
And I think that that should be more of a door wide open instead of a, oh, that sucks that guy's voice isn't Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin talent.
Yeah, I totally agree.
High test.
And there's probably some like technically like amazing singers that you just like don't care for like the color of their voice or the character of their voice, and like that for me is especially like get over it.
Mm.
You know, if you don't like the way Celine Dion sings, that's your taste, but like there's still something to grab onto here.
Vocals wise, who would be like your favorites ever? Kid Cap is in the chat.
It's definitely not the most perfect singers in the world.
Yeah.
I don't care that much for like technical ability, but you know, it is nice to do that. Marvin Gaye, especially 70's.
Because like tone wise, just
Yeah. I also have a theory. I could be totally off base. It kind of hit me, I think sometime last week. I think musicians listen to people. This is based on what I just see with people around me. Musicians listen to people who reflect back to them what they think they sound like. Does that make sense? And I think it goes for like whatever you feel to be on like the gender spectrum, where it's like, you know, I relate to male vocalists, so I am I would like to sound like Bobby Caldwell and Marvin Gaye, and there's some other, and Paul McCartney, and like there's some other people, but like, so I listen to those people, and I think like people who like punk music, people who like metal music, they have some sort of projection of how they hear themselves or view themselves, and so they gravitate towards that kind of singer. But like, okay, my favorite singers, I mentioned Marvin Gaye, Bobby Caldwell, Paul McCartney. I mean like Bette Midler, Nina Simone. Right now, I love Remy Wolf.
Yeah.
Whew. I love Lizzie McAlpine. Her voice is amazing. Yeah, those are just some that just come to mind.
I think that those are great examples, if not like perfect examples, of very specific sort of character too.
Yeah.
And so
definitely.
in the conversation of like technically great versus being your own interesting person, that's a perfect answer to it. And a nice little anecdote is that recently in my local town's like American Idol thing that they put on, it was fascinating seeing different people, most of whom it's like a fun thing that they're going out and doing, like they're not great, but me love it. What's up, Mike? Me loving someone that like isn't perfect, but at least I'm invested because there's some character or something interesting about their voice and the way they're telling a story is infinitely better than the like high school or college theater kid that sounds perfect. But they're like feigning emotion in such a weird way, and it like feels so phony. And it's like that was just a good summary for me of like, wow, this girl can sing, but I don't really care whatsoever.
Yeah, sometimes the more you know about something, the more you are blinded to things. You know, and I think like I'm reading a book now called Think Like a 5-Year-Old. And like it's so important to always get back to that thing where it's like, okay, but if I didn't learn anything, how would this make me feel? And I think that that's so important. It's if you are trained in something, it's nearly impossible. I'm sure that people who know how to code look at everything on the internet and they can't unsee the coding side of things. Or if you're an engineer, you can't unsee, you know, it's so impossible. But, you know, you gotta, as an artist, you can't let the audience control you, but you have to look at your music or your work as if, you know, are my ideas seeable? Am I doing a good job of displaying what I need to be displayed? And I think when you learn music or learn, you get sucked into the rabbit hole of what goes into it, that, like, I make the analogy where it's like, or I don't know if it's a metaphor or an analogy, but people don't really care about how you made the cake. They just want to taste the cake.
Yeah.
And you gotta, that's it, at the end of the day, a nice chef is saying, well, how does the cake taste ultimately?
And there are good examples in the chat right now of, like, somebody in metal is typically gonna be putting a ton of emotion into whatever they're singing. It's
in a theatrical way.
Yeah. And then Connor just said, the singer from Black Country New Road, where it's like a lot of talking or talk singing with, like, weird little squeaks here and there, but that's so much more interesting than the perfect thing.
Well, I the best thing that I can come up with, I think this might do it, is if you listen to a pop song, and then if Broadway comes out with a musical based on that artist or pop song, I will never listen to it, ever. I will never listen to it. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I will never pick the Broadway version. Even, like, I won't pick the new Broadway version. If it's an older musical, I'm always going to go for the original thing. It's just it finds the thing, and it, like, waters it down, and it bastardizes it, and but it's so technically right. It's so good, it's so perfect, and it's devoid of the thing that made it authentic in the first place.
Talk about that for a second, sort of your experience and fascination with theater and the difference. If you were going to explain a new Broadway sound versus an old Broadway sound to somebody, how would you explain it?
Well, I think that theater and Broadway is always on the cutting edge of what is good and what is right. And from a technical, if you want to find the best singer in the world, they're probably on Broadway, technically speaking, because they gotta take care of their voice every night. They gotta sing it perfectly. That's an endurance. They are like an athlete for their. It's the equivalent of, like, it's as hard to get into the NBA as it is to get on Broadway. And so I think that has lasted throughout time, on Broadway, or just like musical, like whether it's West End or musical theater, you are getting the best people in their fields. And I think that that's what's so fascinating about it to me, is that every single type of art medium is involved in a theater piece. You have the acting, you have the writing, you have the staging, you have the lighting, you have the sets, you have the costumes, you have the promotion, you have the marketing, it's everything, and it's live. You got to do it right now. So there's a live music aspect to it too.
As somebody that isn't a huge Broadway theatrical play person, that, like, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, I think that something that seems hard believing it too is that there's a difference between, I'm watching a movie, I'm invested in that, or I'm, like, listening to a song, I'm invested in that. But when you start mixing it and it's live, it's this weird world where you're like, where am I? And I really have to, like, set into this zone right now, and, like, they have to sell it to me in a way.
Yeah, you have to be completely committed to it. It may be more than in a movie. I don't know, maybe not. But just the fact that it's live, it does something. There's an energy to it that, like, you're either in it or you're out of it, and it's something that you kind of have to surrender to. Now, I watched Evita, the 1980s or 90, the 96 Evita movie with Antonio Banderas and Madonna, and it was the worst movie I have ever seen.
Yeah,
it was horrible. I hated it so much. And I don't know, like, there was just so many things that I hated. Maybe I would have appreciated it live, but to me, it just sucked the life out of everything that was. I'm not even crazy about that musical to begin with, but to see it in the movie form, just like the Hollywood version, made it even worse.
And are you saying that it sucked the life out of it even more with that sort of extra production down the line of it being a movie?
And the camera, the actors have to look into the camera sometimes. You know, it's like it when it's successful, it can be like the most perfect thing ever. But when it, I don't know. It's a living organism, a musical, and I think that's so nice.
Shotzi wants to know about like acting and singing and sort of that balance between emotion and technical prowess.
That's a good question. Would you say that actors are putting more effort into being technically perfect, that they suppress their emotions? Maybe, or it could be that they, I think maybe the most important part of being a film actor is that you look good, or you put people in the seats. You get the biggest star to sell the thing. So the I don't really know what it is. I also think that like musicians don't make good actors, but actors can make really great musicians because they know how to interpret a song so well. And I think maybe, it was like with Evita, it was like, let's get Antonio Banderas and like, let's get Madonna because Madonna will definitely sell tickets to see the movie. I thought she was great. I don't know my answer to that, but I would say the most successful actors / singers are the technique is there to a point, but the most important thing is the emotion and the character.
Yeah. And so Jack Black is Bowser. Well, and he's all emotion.
Yeah.
And he like can sing, but so much of it is the presentation and what it is, which if we're talking about like committing to the bit, that's a great example of not phoning it in, not just showing up because you're the hot thing. And even as a tip for like being an artist in general, if we're like creating a theme and like pulling from the different things that we've talked about, I think that Jack Black is a great example of somebody that like is just owning what he has and who he is, and it's sort of working because he's owning it. Like confidence is just such an important aspect. Whether it's like whether you're pretending to have that confidence or not, just doing what you are is the best option.
I would say the ultimate goal as a performer is to learn enough and learn a lot, hopefully, so that you can get rid of those rules to a point so that you can just be yourself, or you can insert yourself into whatever it is you're working on. Like Joaquin Phoenix is one of the best actors that we have right now. And every single role that I see him in, it's like, I see that's Joaquin Phoenix, but I'm also able to remove Joaquin Phoenix from that and say, like, I don't see him anymore. But he's still inserting himself enough where it's like, it's not Robert De Niro, it's Joaquin Phoenix. And I think, like, in music, too, like, you just want to be, I think maybe that's why the Beatles were so successful toward, like, the last 4 or 5 years of their career, was because they learned so much about, like, they did it so much that they were able to get rid of those barriers where they couldn't be themselves, and they had to sing like the cute little like I want to hold your hand things. So they shattered that barrier so that they could now like be totally themselves.
Yeah.
And I think people figured that out. You feel it.
In retrospect, just with like the way that people look at music and say the Beatles as an example, do you think that how much of the Beatles' accolades do you think are because of like innovation versus if you were going to listen to the very specific album and trying to like remove context, if you were listening to the first few records, would they be almost as impressive as the later stuff in a way of like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you had to be alive during that time. You know, I think just culturally in America and maybe in Britain, like there's a huge difference in quality of life or like quality of or cultural capital between. You know, I'm 27. I don't know these things, but like I can just gauge like based off what I see. There's a huge difference between what was happening in 1963 and 1967. Something happened in life that, and so I think if you watched the Beatles in 1964, you're like, this might maybe this is the cutting edge of what we have right now. I'm not really sure it is. They're doing like the cute little boy band thing, but like I don't know, they were a huge deal. People were obsessed with them. You know, like I think they probably reached their peak fame and like before Sgt. Pepper. I don't know. I think the other part is like the human beings love a story. And so there's the thing with the Beatles is there's a story there that is so easy to grab onto.
I think that's one of the most forgotten about, might not be the right way to put it, but just sort of how quickly all of that happened. Like, essentially creating music within a decade.
I mean, they went from early rock and roll, and then they went, you've never listened to the Beatles. Oh my God. That's so exciting. I wish I was you. I wish I could listen to the Beatles for the first time. I forgot what I was saying.
About like the duration of time going from this to this.
Oh yeah. I also think that time moved slower back then too. And so for them to like change so much, I don't know. Like when they made the White Album, they were all 27, 28 years old.
Insane.
Which is like, to me, it's like, that's something that like a 37-year-old does nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a huge difference in the way that they moved. And I think they probably sped up like the evolution of pop and like of they were like a blueprint. I mean, Elvis too, and like, you know, Little Richard. Yeah, I don't know.
Do we want a little music break?
Sure.
Give us a song off Chaseland that we could talk about, that we could go listen to and watch, and then we could come back and talk about.
First one I would think of is Off My Mind. I think that's probably the easiest one to talk about.
So, Chad, we are going to go away from Chase for a second. We're going to go listen...
Yeah, we do listen to newer music. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Some newer music. We're gonna go over to a different screen right now.
Harrison, you've like made your brand off of listening to new music.
Yeah, and essentially trying to find the music that like hasn't come out yet or whatever.
Yeah, that's like you.
Yeah. That is a funny sort of difference between us.
Yeah,
whatever. But anyway,
I wasn't always like that though. I don't know. I got older, I guess. I don't know.
We're gonna go listen to Chase Ceglie's "Off My Mind," watch the music video, and then you guys can ask questions. We can talk about the song, and so we'll be right back. That was me saying hi, not bye.
All my fault, I do this every time. Things were just getting better. Call my phone up, answer every time. Every time. ever. All my fault, I do this every time. Every time. Crazy, baby. I can't go on and on and on again. All night, chasing love off my mind, wasting time. Close enough, but was it worth it? Off my mind, facing time. I don't wanna, but I know I gotta keep off my mind, thinking of me. Want your love, but this is hurting. Off my mind, off my mind, off my mind.
There it is. Clap for him. Chase Ceglie, folks. We're back. What's up, bro?
You forgot the phone call at the end.
I was just gonna skip over that. Pretend it didn't happen.
No, why?
So first we have you have a lot of unread messages. What's that about?
I'm so bad at responding. It's my biggest anxiety, I think, in life is my ability to. Yeah, I don't know. Being responsive is so hard for me.
Was Lou the cat placed there, or was it just like out of circumstance?
I was filming the video, and then she hopped up on the keyboard, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, definitely. Overcrowded video in the best way, for real. I like that. Yes, thank you. Well, yeah, thanks for. I'm glad you guys like it.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
With a song like this, how much of it for you, if you were going to give me a percentage of this versus this, how much of it is I'm writing a nice song that's a good song technically, songwriting wise, blah blah blah, versus I have this specific thing that I want to write a song about? Do you how much do you base sort of real life importance off of it versus just making good music?
I don't write about specific things. I write about a combination of things and people that I've collected. So, this is a good question that probably ties back to like what we're talking about with albums and theater, which is like, for the most part, I'm very music first. And so the lyrics are, they come after the melody and the music for me. But when I'm making an album, I have a concept that I'm working towards. And so that helps me figure out like, oh, wait, I have this song, it sounds like this, but I don't really know what it's about yet. And so the context around it can help me figure out what it can be about. Like that song, okay, the evolution of this song is I sat down at the piano and I just came up with, I had a chord progression and then I just came up with da 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 da. That probably took me like 20 minutes to come up with. And cool, recorded it, did the thing on the thing, and then I grabbed my microphone and I had it looping, and I kind of just made up like, there's a demo of this on YouTube, which could be kind of interesting to listen to, where I'm mumbling the words and like, I thought the song was going to be called Every Time, or like, oh, nah, this, all my life, all my love, every time. And eventually, like, the thing that made it fit the most emotionally and, like, lyrically was, like, Off My Mind. Okay, I can make a song about, like, this, like, frustration with something that's not going the way that I would like it to.
Something that I think is interesting there is that obviously, like with everything that we're talking about, it's like there's always such a wide range and array of like the stuff that's out there. And so you could take what you just said and compare it to like the most ultra specific, I had this horrible trauma memory that I'm writing lyrics about. And I think it's interesting to sort of find the magic in both places
100%.
and to not look at your way of doing it and say that it's insincere in some way, but to look at it and just say that like it's just a different path. Like you took a different way to the street, you know?
Yeah, I want, like, my goal at the end of the day is to be as authentic as I can. But sometimes, sometimes you just find a shiny penny on the ground. And then that kind of like, you're like, oh, there's like, that's it. And it opens that door for that idea for then you ultimately you polish it and you make it feel as authentic as you can. I agree though. I mean, there are ways. I have that joke that I say where it's like, if there's sometimes where if you put the lyrics before the music for me, it's like I just want you to write a book.
Yeah.
Like it's not, maybe this isn't your medium, but that's always if I think that the music clashes with the lyrics. There's a weird emphasis on some of the words or the rhyme scheme feels off to me. But someone like, there are some ultra specific or there are some songwriters that are ultra specific in what they do. I would say like Frank Ocean is the first one that comes to mind in terms of like he can put this super specific reference in his life of like Coachella, or like he references Coachella a lot, or which I'm a little envious of that I'm working on too. Like how do I make it authentically specific to me? It's tough. It's hard.
I've always said that there's something to pros and cons to everything, obviously, but with probably who's my favorite songwriter ever, Jake Ewald, band called Slaughter Beach Dog, formerly of Modern Baseball. He is like very specific with his lyrics, but for whatever reason that evokes something in me that his ultra specificity can make me think of a memory that isn't the same, but it like gives the same vibe.
That I have that okay. That answers a question that I have for you.
Yeah.
Which is that that might be something that I have a hard time with sometimes is when it's so hyper specific. Am I supposed to hear it as that specific thing, or can I insert myself in that? And sometimes when the lyrics are like specific in a way that I'm not fond of, it's because I can't put myself into it.
I think that with the conversations that we've had about this before, yes, that's at least where I'm coming from with it, that there can be lyrics that are so specific and so cutting, and it's like a story that literally happened, and you're hearing the beats of the story and the verbiage and the adjective describing the house and the way that they looked and blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, it can create more of a realistic image in my head that I can either, not that I'm there, but I can sort of capture my own vision of that.
Yeah.
As opposed to I Love You, We Had a Nice Day song where it's more general.
Yeah.
Where that is supposedly more open to interpretation, but because of how open it is, there's nothing going on in my brain. There's like no stimulation. And so when I hear the like 10 adjectives within a verse describing the house and the sidewalk and the this and the that and how I turned and blah blah blah. For whatever reason, for me at least, that imagery, even though it's more specific, feels more relatable in a weird
Yeah,
way.
okay, yeah. I mean, it's like reading a book. It's like watching a movie. You know, you're not going through the same things that like uh, these characters, but you know, you're world building. Yes, you're watching someone go through something that conjures up the same emotions that you had in this specific instance. You know, and for me, there's a successful way of doing that, and there's a not successful way of doing that. And I think that maybe it's like an attention span thing that we are in now, where I've been noticing music nowadays is so much more hyper specific about things. Like there's a universality that is even more removed than it was in like years before. I would say like the big, you know, and that's something that gets me is like I find that being universal in my lyrics would attract more people because it's so open to their own interpretation. But you know, maybe people have the attention spans where they need to have specific things kind of like charted out for them in lyrics. Now, there's another thing, and going back to like theater, I think that there are two main ways that theater operates, which is I want to what's the way that I can say this? I want to be taken out of the world that I'm in, or I want to be related to the world that I'm in. And both of those things are totally valid. And there's like, you know, different genres of theater and storytelling where, you know, I'm in the real world or I'm taken out of this world. And, you know, that's up to preference.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's nice to be able to do both.
Which I think with me saying that specificity is relatable in a weird way to me, I think that the other option can also be very true, that I'm listening to a song and it's so specific that I'm watching that movie of that song.
Yeah.
And instead of me relating to that world, I'm just stuck in that world for a second watching it happen. And I think that that's a fascinating way to go about it too.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, you know, from a conventional conventional songwriting standpoint, the verse is usually more specific, and the chorus is usually more general and universal. So, in a really successful song, I think you're able to pull off both, where you can get into the detail within the verse because it's a little busier or something, and you can draw in the listener, and then you can kind of zoom out with the chorus.
Mm-hmm. Another song off Chase Lane, perhaps?
Maybe. Oh, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, please.
I think that a lot of this, I have another theory, which is that a lot of this hyper-specific songwriting might come from the rise of rap music.
That's interesting.
Because you can't do as much in a song, in a pop song as you can in 16 bars of a rap verse. And rap music is the biggest music right now, and it has been. I think it like recently broke the record. You know, it's the top charting genre of all time for the longest period of time. And I think maybe that songwriting style is just a response to that.
I think you got something there.
I think so too. I've been thinking about that a lot. Yeah.
I want to play Forever.
Great.
Forever is my favorite song off Chaseland, and I think that we can go to a place of almost sort of simplicity.
Yeah.
That we were talking about specificity and like intricacies and whatnot. And so I'm going to go away for a second. We're going to listen to my favorite song off Chase's most recent album, and I
didn't know it was your favorite. That's cool.
That's my favorite. I want to talk about sort of simplicity and just how something can move you innately as opposed to all this other stuff that we're talking about. So we'll be right back. Here we go. The song is called Forever. incredible song. God, I love that thing.
Thank you.
So, if you could just indulge me for a second.
Okay.
There are so many things that I love about it, and sort of structurally, one of my favorite aspects is you're going on the same sort of loop.
Shout out to Brooke the dancer.
Shout out to Brooke Nola in the chat for the dancing on top of the piano.
Killed it.
You're going on sort of a similar ride throughout, and there's not a whole lot of difference between blah 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 verse chorus verse chorus verse chorus. It all feels pretty synonymous, but it is just so enjoyable that you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
But then the part that like I'm so obsessed with is that by the end of the song, you almost acknowledge that in a way.
Yeah.
And you're laughing.
I've gained sentience.
Yeah, you've gained sentience and you're self-aware that like we're doing the same thing, but it's like we're going forever. You're like laughing almost because we're still going.
Yeah,
but it's like sort of an acknowledgement, at least from my perspective, about how innately nice this all is.
Yeah.
And I think that with songs, the stuff that came to my mind while we were watching that I was trying to get examples for, if you have something like Jump Out the House by Playboi Carti, or you have something like Walk It Talk It by Migos, or you have Get Lucky by Daft Punk, you don't need different things all the time. You could just enjoy the most specific thing, and that could be a majority of the song, and it's perfect.
I agree. There's a that can go too far, and then that can be too far in the other direction too. And so, I think that might be the problem that I find with like most musicians, like good musicians, is like the simplicity thing like makes them explode a little bit, where it's like I need more. Yeah. Where for me, like repetition is the most important thing, and I like that the fourth part of the verse is funny to me because it's like, as I'm listening to it, it's like, okay, I'm just about to get sick of this part.
Yeah.
And then I acknowledge, like, what if I sing it forever? Like, here I go. Like, what if I just sing it? I'm like winking into the camera a little bit, which I find like that's my favorite part. Is like, yeah.
And not to say that it's literally repeating over and over again, because musically there are aspects of adding and subtracting. Maybe 3/4 of the way through, you get that little piano that's like something like that. You get some of the higher pitched ending of a line that's a little bit different from how you said it before. It's this really nice combination of doing the same thing over and over again, but tweaking it just enough that it's different, but it's not wholly different and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think by the second time around you can sing along to it, which is nice. I enjoy that. And the little details. If you're a fan of this style of music, then it's gonna be little tiny details that will grab you, like the piano, or like maybe the guitar doing like a specific thing that's different, or my voice like just being unpredictable. I mean, the other part is, as a performance of that song, I'm really like I'm driving it home to myself, and so I'm repeating it to myself. I should be holding you forever. I should make sure that no one takes this place. I'm what? Whoa, we got some Italian in the chat. I'm talking to myself a lot, and I think that I do that a lot in my music, and so I'm convinced I'm doing it for myself.
To give an anecdote there that I think is a good representation of what you're getting at, is that one time I was on vacation with my family, and my brother was doing karaoke, and he was like, what's a song that I know well and that like people might sing along to? And he did Can't Feel My Face by The Weeknd.
Yeah.
But doing that, he was probably a little nervous and didn't want to do karaoke, but he was doing it. He was not committing to all the different "I can't feel my face when I'm with yous." And so the repetition is infinitely more robotic and boring, and you know that it's coming, and oh my god, killing
Yeah, and
me.
you're just like, all right, okay, come on,
Yeah,
like,
but with Forever and with what you're saying about live performances, there's a way of doing it where it can feel new every time, or at least it can be refreshing still after the fourth time.
yeah, I think that's totally it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there are a lot of okay, like let's look at a Future song. I mean, how, or that Playboy Cardi song, you know, like jump out the house, jump out the house, jump out the house, jump out the house. It's the same thing, and it becomes like a. I'm gonna get really nerdy, but it's like minimalist classical music where you get this thing that repeats over and over again, and the structure doesn't really change. I don't know. There's something to it, and I understand wanting to also like get away from that too. You know, I think just maybe that song called for it, and that's it. And hopefully the melody is intricate enough where it doesn't get tiring. You know, if it was a short phrase of like 3 notes, you'd get really tired of it. But I'm hoping the melody is a longer phrase that you won't get sick of. I don't know.
There was one question about the way you mixed your vocals. Do you have anything about that?
Yeah, I'm curious what like it is different. This is a song that has what's called like a slapback delay. And I don't know. It added to like maybe a live performance kind of feel to it, where it felt kind of off the cuff. But yeah, there were 2 references for the song, which was obviously Benny and the Jets and Jealous Guy, the Donny Hathaway version.
I don't know that.
Where, and I believe it's a live version. And it was just something really nice about it that I kind of wanted to take. I don't know. Usually it's just what the song for me like calls for, I guess.
And do you have no problem sort of thematically doing that across an album? Say, if this song needs this and this song needs this, that who cares if they sound different?
Yeah, it's whatever the song needs.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm in an album. I'm working towards like some sort of concept, so I can only go so far. But for the most part, I want to be open to whatever the song needs.
Yeah.
And I think that's what like pop music is like. We're not steeping ourselves in like references and like being art and conscious about it, but it's like, what does the song need to be likable?
Mm-hmm. How would you respond to, say, sort of like the TikTokification of things and like getting like that viral sound? Where do you think that falls into create the way people create music in general, and what you've seen with that?
You got to get used to it, I guess. I mean, you gotta well, okay. I don't know if people are consciously. No, that's not true. It can be painful when it's conscious. Like it went into the making of it, where it's like, I was trying to think of one song that did that the other day, where I was like, oh, this is trying to like create a moment. I feel like some Drake songs do that.
Do you know that Carly Rae Jepsen song that got big with that snippet on TikTok? People said that song was doing it really hard and consciously, and I kind of disagreed. I feel like the song earns that aspect, and it was just like this beautiful little moment. But people were just like, oh, she's trying to get a sound.
Yeah, I think with TikTok, it's kind of like TikTok grabs onto the best part of the best song out. You know?
Yeah.
Like I would say like that Olivia Rodrigo song was a Driver's License. That was like one of the first like bigger TikTok songs. It's like it's a great moment in a great song. Or like that Omar Apollo song. I don't know, like I get it. But we're doing that with old hits.
Yeah.
You know? Like we're pulling. What was the other one? I saw the other day.
What was it? Billy Joel, Zanzibar was like a TikTok sound. And
it's like you can't predict these things too.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you can't cater. You kind of just have to like let it do its thing. And like there are some of the songs on Chase Line where it's like I could hear it in a TikTok song, but like I'm not gonna be the one to do that.
Yeah.
I can hear the hook da 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 in. I can hear that song part of the song in a TikTok video, but I'm not, whatever. It's like the wind; you can't catch it.
And it's funny when it's like a chorus, and it's like, yeah, what did you expect? Somebody to not think that the chorus was catchy?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And there were some. I mean, it is sad. Like sometimes that's the only part of the song that people know. It's like there's like the joke around like where like the Zoomers are going to the concerts and like they only know the one. Yeah, they only know the one part of the song, and like people in the comments are like, TikTok ruined this moment or whatever. I don't know. You can't. It's like bottling the wind. You can't do anything. It's cringe if you try and do it for that.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing to do in life.
When you're performing live, do you feel a big difference between if people know the songs or not? Does that make a difference for you?
Oh my God. Big difference.
Yeah.
Yes. Big difference. It's so much more fun.
Mm.
The shows that I've done lately, people know the words and it's like, oh my God. It's almost like a transfer of energy where it's like, I did the work 6 years ago on this song. And I'm finally getting that energy in person back to me.
Weird.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Because I'll wonder that sometimes if like somebody's at a festival as opposed to their specific concert. And that would be a big difference between...
They know the hits at a festival.
Versus like, only knowing the chorus or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would just wonder... As you're starting out and sort of playing within the past few years, playing your first shows as a pop musician, and are you offended at all when people don't know the words? Like, does that hurt in any way?
No, they just haven't heard it yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. Like, and it's my job as a performer to convince them that this is a song worthy of their time. You know, and I think because my songs are very simple and repetitive, it translates better in a live setting than more maybe like wordy songs do, because you can grab onto it by the third time around.
Well, something that is so great about you and what you do live is with your basis of being a jazz musician, but like a passion for pop music and simplicity. It's a best of both worlds situation where you can sing the song by the second chorus, but then on stage, you and the band can also trick around with it.
That was something that I wasn't aware of until recently when I've been performing more, where it's like, because my songs are, I find like very catchy and simple and repetitive, like whatever, you do that thing and then you can go on whatever like tangent you want within reason, don't go too crazy. I think the saxophone is a nice like visual kind of like energetic thing to look at, which is nice. So then you can go on that thing and hopefully it's not just musicians who get something out of it. Hopefully there's like some energy to it. So then when you come back to it, back to the simple catchy thing. And I didn't realize that was what I didn't realize that would be able to translate so well live until I started doing it live. And now it's informing my songwriting, where it's like, I need an anchor that is something that I can play the saxophone to live, just a melody or something. I need that anchor for me. So in a live setting, maybe I can go somewhere else, but I can always come back to this home base of something that is like danceable or catchy or recognizable.
Love it. I think we're near wrapping up.
Cool.
I think I could play one more Chase song. If people in the chat, if you want to get sort of a last question ready, if you want to ask Chase before we end the stream, I'm going to play one more song, and then we'll come back for a second, say bye. Chase might answer a couple questions, and that sounds good.
Cool.
So get a question ready if you're in the chat and you have anything that you want to know. You just read my mind, Picklesaurus. We're going to listen to Hold On by Chase Ceglie.
She seems so lonely, like the flower in her hair. Carried belongings to the little station where her eyes can show just what her mind is going through. Air in the springtime always seemed to make her cry. Years pass and go by, she never really figured why. Riders loading as she sighs, the train comes through. And as she's boarding, memories come pouring through. She says, no, I'm not afraid. All I wanna do is hold on. If you could see my face, you would see the truth. Move on. Time moves so steady when you're in a rocking chair. Life proves you're ready, and suddenly you've stopped to care. Signs you won't avoid will find your point of view. And as you are boarding, memories come pouring through. No, I'm not afraid. All I wanna do is hold on. If you could see my face, then you would see the truth and move on.
The beautiful Hold On by Chase Ceglie.
Shouts out to Jonathan Elyashiv for, helping me make this album. He's such an amazing instrumentalist. And this was the first time I've given my music to, or I've worked with someone to accomplish an album. Usually I play all the instruments, but this, shouts out to Jonathan.
And it sounds great.
Thanks.
So first off, is the fourth chord in the chorus of Hold On a diminished chord?
It's a half diminished chord. It's a minor 7 flat 5. It's a sharp 4 minor 7 flat 5. It's so annoying, but yeah, half diminished.
On to the next. You said your songs are simple, but they actually don't sound simple.
I would say that this one is my least simple this is my most storytelling I've ever done in a song, and it was very liberating for me to do that. But I would say, I would say that melody is pretty complicated, but as long as it repeats, then it's okay. It's a long phrase, but I think you have the words to grab onto.
Shotzi wants to know, what are some artists that you take a lot of inspiration from? Totally not trying to get artist recommendations. No siree.
No siree. Let's see.
I mean, Paul McCartney's like your number one.
Paul McCartney, Stephen Sondheim. But I want to name like new people too. You know, like
Do you know Zach Valet?
Yeah, I listen to some of their music.
Somebody was asking me the other day of like, somebody mentioned who was your similar artists on Apple Music or Spotify, and it was funny being like, people might just listen to this artist, so it's popping up. Yeah. But I think that he's an interesting one of somebody that like, there is something between the two of you that I do see.
Definitely. I've had that. He's been on my like similar artist thing on Spotify for a few years. I think he's a little like more edgy than I am, but let's see. I would say I love Heather, Hether. He's like his name's Paul. Love his music. Stevie Wonder is the greatest songwriter that ever lived. I love Prince. I love...
Oh, Shotzi was Stephen Sondheim, the composer and whatnot.
Stephen Sondheim. He wrote musicals.
Excuse me.
And like he did Sweeney Todd, if you know Sweeney Todd. He's just like the best lyricist ever. And he has 2 books on lyrics, which are really good. I mean, during this time period, it was like a lot of 70's music. So, you know what? I have a whole playlist of inspiration. Al Green, Harry Nilsson, Dion, Gilbert O'Sullivan. I really love, her name is Hannah Stretton, and I really love her stuff. She's doing stuff now. She has 47,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. She has a song called The Thrill of Loneliness that I'm like obsessed with. Cannibal Holocaust soundtrack, definitely. That's a really good one. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was enough. I love John Bryan too. Whatever he does.
Gecko says, can you please explain the story of the women? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Gecko.
The woman in the story of Hold On.
Oh, okay.
It's about a girl who goes to a train station to start a new life somewhere else, and the moment she is about to get on the train, a flood of memories come pouring in, stuff that she didn't really consider. And then the chorus is, no, I'm not afraid, but all I want to do is hold on. So it's that moment of like of moving on from a certain place in your life, and the moment that you do, you get like washed in memories of what you're actually leaving behind.
Do you know like graduation goggles? I think that's the term.
No.
That, like when you're about to graduate, say high school or college or something, or say even like a job that you're about to quit, instead of these people that have like annoyed you for years and you don't really care about, you're now looking at them and you're like
sentimental.
Yeah, you're like, wow, I actually love this person and everything they do.
Yeah, what's that like what's the quote, the Michael Scott quote where it's like, I wish you could know you're in the good old days when you were in them.
Yeah.
I think about that line a lot. Yeah, I think it's just about nostalgia. I think that's what it is.
Shotzi says you're getting a new follower on Spotify.
Nice, thanks.
Gecko says ending of Gravity Falls. Remy's laughing. Well, everybody say thanks to Chase for indulging me and us and having a nice conversation.
And everyone say thank you to Harrison for starting a Twitch stream. I've been trying to get him to do it for a while. So Thanks for doing it. Thanks for having me. I hope this is not the last time.
I hope not either. Shout out to Chase Ceglie. Follow him at Chase Ceglie. Go see him live if you can. Support his music on Spotify and everything. And
join my Patreon.
Join his Patreon. Appreciate everybody in chat. Thank you so much. One thing before we go, I just want to say the leaderboard for trivia. We did music trivia the other night, and this is the current leaderboard. Follow me on my socials, Renshaw HS, if you want to see the next time we're doing music trivia. It was very fun, and I'm excited to do it again. We'll see if you can get up on the music trivia leaderboard.
Nice.
But anyway, I'm going to end the stream. Good night to everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chase.
Bye, everyone.